The Israeli government spokesman Mark Regev is in Jerusalem. Mark Regev, UN premises are inviolable and that inviolability cannot be set aside by the demands of military expediency. Does Israel accept that tonight? That is stated in this report.
Of course, we very much do respect UN facilities. We don't want to see UN facilities or UN personnel getting caught up in crossfire between us and the Hamas terrorists. We do have a problem with this report, and I think you'll notice that the Secretary General himself has used language to indicate that he is distancing himself and the United Nations from this report that has a very problematic methodology.
What is that problem?
As you'll notice, it relies primarily on speaking to people on the ground in Gaza when everyone knows, and Channel 4 itself has done a report on this, that people on the ground in Gaza cannot speak freely out against Hamas because if they do so, they can face immediately retribution.
Well, now, one of the most clear-cut issues which Mr. Ban Ki-moon certainly stands by is that of the January the 15th attack on the warehouse complex of the United Nations, which went on 2 hours after the UN representative there had called the commander and said, "Stop shelling." And the shelling continued. And this report finds Israel guilty of deliberately continuing.
Well, first of all, we've got our own report out on that particular case. And
yeah, but let's just talk about this report. This is a United Nations report. Your report we can talk about another time.
And it's a report that the Secretary General is distancing himself from.
That's what you say, Mr. Regev. There's no evidence of that whatever. He has said he is not going to pursue further inquiries against you.
Correct.
But what he does
stand by, he says it has no legal. He says it has no legal implications as well. He's also said. He's also said that the combat situation in Gaza was a very complex combat situation. I'd remind you, Mr. Snow, this report in no way, it totally ignores the fact that Hamas had a deliberate strategy, and I think Channel 4 also reported this,
Mr. Regev,
using these sort of UN facilities as a shield to shoot from that immediate vicinity. That has been reported widely. This
Mr. Regev, let's just stick to the facts here. Ban Ki-moon has unveiled a report which accuses you of negligence and recklessness in your conduct of the war in Gaza, specifically because it only deals with these United Nations attacks where the United Nations are concerned. He doesn't distance himself from that. He states it as a fact. You're denying it?
No. I'd urge you to look very carefully at what the Secretary General has said. And I think what is fundamentally flawed in this report is that it's not in any way looked at how Hamas used UN facilities as a shield. There are documented cases where they shoot from the immediate vicinity of a UN facility only to draw our fire.
The report
Why was that not criticised?
The report does not resile from the accusation, and I'm dealing with you. I'll deal with Hamas on another occasion. I'm dealing with you on your negligence and recklessness. That is something which came out of the very mouth of the Secretary General. You can't say he was weaseling away from it. He stood by it. He unveiled this report and stood by it and uttered the words.
I'd say once again to be very careful. I think the situation in Gaza had very difficult combat at the time, where you had a terrorist group which deliberately violated, on countless examples, UN neutrality, fired at our forces. That story, you'll recall, we did it together, I think, about the UN school. That was a specific case where they shot at us immediately adjacent to the school. We returned fire, but that whole incident was precisely because Hamas brutalized the UN facility, turning it into a war zone.
But, Mr. Regev, obviously
surely the UN...
We can go in forensically to each of these things. I think, in a sense, all we're doing is discussing a report in which there are 6 allegations that you smashed up UN buildings, killed UN personnel, wounded others, and all you can say is the Secretary-General's distancing himself from it. I'm afraid there's simply no evidence to support what you're saying. Not a single smidgen.
No, but those allegations, the allegations in the report, Mr. Snow, are based on very faulty investigations by the United Nations. An investigator goes in, an investigator goes out. Who is there the whole time, before, during and after? A Hamas official that will make sure that no one being investigated will speak out of turn. You yourself on Channel 4 had to interview someone's foot because they couldn't speak out against the Hamas brutal military regime.
Mr. Regev,
Human Rights Watch itself
it's easy to go sliding around onto other issues. I'm really trying to pin you onto this specific report. And this report says that you caused death, injuries and damage to UN property. It's something you don't want to address. That's clear from tonight.
The report is wrong. I'm addressing it directly. The report is incorrect.
The warehouse was not burned down by your shelling. The people were not killed by your bombs. That correct?
Correct. Correct.
Mr. Regev,
Hamas deliberately.
Mr. Regev, I must leave it there.
Deliberately.
I must leave it there, and the viewer will just have to judge for themselves.
I
Thank you
think what
very
I
much
was
for
saying
joining
was very
us.
relevant, sir. Very relevant indeed.
Thank you for joining us.